There's the same kind of denial, dismissal, defensiveness here as white people have everywhere. The difference here is the culture, again, is so white, so overwhelmingly white. It's invisible to white people who grew up here.
U.S. Commission on Civil Rights published a report on racism in Vermont schools. Listening to people of color come in and testify before this group, and the general reaction was, "Oh, you're exaggerating. This can't happen here."
Teacher comes over, and then she's like, "Well, welcome to Vermont, the richer, whiter state."
If a person has not experienced discrimination, they can't talk about it, but they can learn about it by talking to someone who has experienced it.
Sat in the back of the bus, and a kid behind me yelled out, like, I don't know if it was directed towards me or anything, but it was really, really mean, that Black people are faggots. The most challenging thing for me, just the name calling that people would say to me, and just it really hurt, and holding it in and not trying to react at first, but after a while I just got really mad and started telling people off, like, hey, like, don't call me a nigger.
Porch monkey, the N-word, the nigger word.
Puerto Rican puppy fucker.
The N-word, Peter Cotton Picker, my black best friend.
I was in my journalism class, and I think it was the first day, and I'm the only person of color in that class, and the teacher was talking about the Mike Brown incident, and he said, so, you know, Mike Brown was shot 6 times, like, how do we, like, feel about that? And this one kid, he was like, Mike Brown deserved to die because he was Black.
My daughter started going to school and talking about her heritage and how she found out that she's French, Irish, Indian, and Puerto Rican, and started being proud of who she was. They wanted to learn Spanish. We would put on Spanish cartoon shows so that they could learn. She was drawing the Puerto Rican and the American flag on her artwork. And then one day, my daughter came home crying, talking about a group of girls who had been picking on her. They were telling her that she wasn't really a Puerto Rican, that she was white. I had immediately brought flashbacks when people were telling me, well, how can you be Puerto Rican if you don't speak Spanish? I got angry, but I let her speak and held it in and tried not to cry. And she said it had been going on for a little while. She just didn't want to tell me. But finally she had had enough one day because they started calling her a Dorkarican. They weren't just picking on her to pick on her. They were picking on her because she was proud to be a Puerto Rican. This was the end of last year, and while she was in 3rd grade, she still doesn't put the Puerto Rican flag on anything, and she still doesn't talk about her heritage.
The first year he was in school, he was between suspensions and just being out of the classroom 108 times. And the first couple of months, I would take him to school, and then I would get phone calls to come pick him up, and that was really hard. That was something that we really hadn't had to deal with. It was that to the point that I thought maybe I would just have to take him out and try to homeschool him. It was like he was singled out. If somebody else did something to him and he was pretty much trying to defend himself, he was usually the one that was sent out to either to the planning room or to in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension. Once he was hit with a chain by a kid, and because he threw the kid up against the locker, he was suspended from school for that.
The quote, harm people is the story of my life. The way I responded to racism was the only way that I knew, and that was through violence, because that is where I came from. I knew that it was not okay to hurt people. I got suspended from school quite a few times, not for being violent toward people, but because I punched the lockers or the walls, and I realized, or I noticed, that my suspensions were a lot longer than other people's suspensions. My white friends' suspensions, who actually physically touched each other in fights.
The administration definitely had labeled me as a dangerous, scary kid, and it was really strange because I was that kid who was really quiet and I was friends with almost everybody. I didn't have anyone that I really fought with ever. I'd never been in a fight in school. My junior year, there was a lady who had said somebody was gonna shoot up graduation. One of the secretaries just assumed it was me. So the police went over to McDonald's. They had the entire SWAT team. They were gonna take me out in handcuffs, and they went through my car and they searched my car for weapons. They tried to search me. They asked if they could strip search me, and I said no. After they called the cops on me for graduation, they expelled me the next day after they found out that I was not guilty. So I was expelled and had to find a new school.
My son went to jail when he was 11 years old, and now he's 16. Now it's coming from my young one who is 10 years old, and I'm really scared about him. Another white kid accused him something he hasn't done, and we said, okay, we will transfer for other school. But I have that fear, you know, my youngest son is still coming.
Could relate to this such and such because like she is of this race, so but no, I can't because I'm not a slave.
Why are the only things that our children are learning about black people is that they were slaves?
And I've also found that the schools don't celebrate Black History Month. That bothered me. I don't know about the other cities in Vermont, but in this town they don't celebrate Black History Month at the schools.
What was special about the whole month of February, one thing?
Black History Month. People weren't even talking about it.
So at school, what did they do to learn about it or celebrate it?
They did nothing.
We need to stop teaching them about blacks only on Black History Month. What about Puerto Ricans and Chinese people and the Cambodian people I knew and the Russian people I've met and the German people? Why can't we have a history month every month? I
believe that the schools need to get trained in culture, the different cultures, not just African American, but the different cultures. This is something that I believe too needs to be taught in the schools about racism, whether it's a disability type discrimination or just the fact that somebody's skin color is different, or maybe their language barrier is different. It should be taught so that children can understand why other children are different from them.
If we understood and respected our differences instead of trying to fight to make everybody the same, because we're not the same. We're not. And it's about time that people start respecting the fact that we're not the same and learning how to live with each other with that respect.
People that are supposed to be educated, they're failing by not educating the kids into how they should respond to a person of a different color or a different race or nationality or whatever it may be.
We are not raising American citizens. The world is connected globally.
His classmates, they're not necessarily going to stay here forever either. So what are they going to do? Go from this all-white community to another all-white community? If they're going to go into a situation where there's more diversity, isn't it better for them to understand that and be prepared to be respectful?
If we're accepting refugees from Syria, who these children are going to end up in our schools with my children, who just came from war and watched people get blown up and even some of their own family members die.
So many reasons that I left Somalia because I didn't have any opportunity. And then again, there was a fight, and then that fight, I didn't have a place to stay. I used to stay under the dead body. And I thought that America would give me freedom, but I don't think so. There's a freedom in here for us.
How the hell is that okay for that little girl to be sitting across the table from my daughter, and my daughter have absolutely no idea what she just went through to get here? That's what needs to change. And I thought we'd been working on it for over 100 years now, but apparently it's not working so well. Something else needs to be done.
Teacher comes over, and then she's like, well, welcome to Vermont, the richer, whiter state.
It's uncomfortable. They don't want to address that we have white supremacy in our midst, that it's here. It is here.
About to expand, y'all. You heard it.
They want to hold on to that myth of this uber liberal place where it's so accepting.
Racism is something that is kind of undercover. It's very pretty much, and it's not looked at as actually happening, but it is happening.
Bless the child and the fam, about to expand, y'all. You heard it. You know where you heard it. So here we go. We're up in the lab. I stay strong and upright, aligning my sight with the day-to-day flight, still providing the light. And in spite of the struggle, I'ma decidedly fight for our God-given rights beyond just living our life in complacency, on some wait and see. Sitting back on our asses won't make us free. We gotta recognize our assets and take the lead. It's a war upon the classes, ain't Nathan free. The poor are brutalized in the system we live in, creating criminals out of innocent victims. We see through the lies when we listen to children. Corrupted advertisements diminish the wisdom. I'm tired of the bullshit, finished with slackness. A different learning style, and they label them bad kids. Packed in the classes, unable to grasp this. Tangled web we weave, and we ain't even arachnids.
That I've graduated, so we're motivated.
I wanted
to be slow motion. Talking in slow motion might be confusing. Really funny. Do you like to do that? Funny.
Stay working. You're looking for a favorite artist, I am that person. Kickback is coming up soon, they want to summon us, but for now they just want to cuddle up. Cuddle up. Yeah, man. Don't sleep on me. Come close. Yo, Rashni.